Well, this year's World Refugee Day also marks a key moment for the public to show support for families forced to flee their homes. To do this, the United Nations Refugee Agency has launched the hashtag with refugees petition to send a message to governments that they must work together and do their fair share for refugees. A further look at this, of course, we are now being joined in the studio by Chief Executive Officer, African Refugees Foundation, Jimi Olusola. Thank you very much indeed for coming.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we just watched a video, a report there where some materials, relief materials, were sent to refugees. But my question is, do we have to wait until it's Refugee Day, first before we do, things like this for the refugees?
Absolutely not. That's what we've been saying for 22 years. The governments in Nigeria and indeed in Africa ought to be more proactive in trying to ensure that relief measures are put in place so that the situation where you have people rushing to help refugees would not occur. When we have a situation where people understand why refugees are produced or IDPs are produced, you would know that it's not proper, right, to then think that every day you must take things to come. Now, if we had a lot of top-level intervention, because refugees are products of bad governance anyway, globally, and a lot more sensitization of the challenges agencies face, in trying to alleviate these tensions with refugees and refugee camps, certainly we would not be rushing to take rice or bread or sardines
food
or aid or anything to IDP camps. But unfortunately, there is now no difference between refugees and IDPs. The marked difference, of course, is that one crosses a border to another. But in IDPs, you just cross your land. Your house can fall down today.
Internally displaced.
They're all internally displaced.
All right. This time last year, June 2016 precisely, a petition was signed, hashtag with refugees petition. How far-reaching or impactful has that been?
Now, I don't know if you've heard anything about that. Now, that will tell you the importance that global governments give to refugees. The United Nations High Commission is trying, the United Nations system is trying, but we call on African governments, and indeed Nigerian governments, to be more resourceful. They have put in a lot of resources, but it's not reaching. Those resources aren't reaching the places they should reach. There are too many kind-hearted Nigerians who are willing to volunteer, but there must be a structured channel where people can go out and go to the refugee camps. Now, I don't know if you've been to any refugee situations, camps at all, but over the 23 years we have operated, it's not something that anybody would certainly want to relish. It is, it's devastating, it's dehumanizing, it creates dichotomy, and we hope that people will use this day to remember that refugees don't fall from the sky. They're products of man's inhumanity to man.
And unfortunately, from what we've seen so far, it does appear there is no deliberate attempt or effort on the part of governments to be of great assistance or greater assistance to the refugees. But let me ask this. We hear that funding has slowed from donor countries around the world. Why do you think that there is this slowness?
The incidence of NGOs having a lot of little funding in relation to refugee issues is simply because we do not have the depth of technical assistance. An NGO like the African Refugees Foundation, for instance, you would need proper program officers. It's not just about aid. It's about understanding the measures that create these tensions. And you have to go back to environmental measures, to social measures, to academic measures, right? And when if I ask you for 100 naira for a refugee, little would you know that the actual amount of money that would go to that refugee may be 30 naira. There is 70 naira involved in logistics, in so many other things, and that also causes challenges. Of course, when you do give monies to irresponsible governments, right? When we have foreign aid and irresponsible governments globally cannot spend those monies judiciously, of course they would slow down the funding. So most of the international donors want to be sure that wherever they're giving their money to, either it's for aid, either it's for rescue or rehabilitation or educative programs, that we are actually spending that money. So it's a lot of control, a lot of tight measures, and hopefully African nations are gearing up to that now.
Well, in terms of the Refugee Day, like you just mentioned, we do have the internally displaced ones and those who are looking for greener pastures outside. So because you have witnessed firsthand the atrocities and perilous journeys these migrants and refugees go through, what would you say to our youth who are looking to go out of the country?
Nigeria is a great country. It's blessed. We hopefully will have leaders who will continue to have the vision to ensure that the youth, the youths of this country would be in a position to understand how we can harness our powers, right? I urge them to still stay. I urge them that if they get their act together, I urge them that if they can understand where we're going to and where we have come from as a nation,
Indeed,
that there is so much that they can harness. And this is home. Please stay here.
Brilliant. All right, now, Kenya for a while has been looking to close what arguably is the biggest refugee camp in the world. What's your thought on that?
I don't know if you remember when we closed a supposed refugee camp in Nigeria. We had one which was in Uru, which with the Liberians and the Sierra Leoneans and the Guineans and every other person. People and governments know that when you have a settlement of IDPs or refugees, you actually create some kind of development. So until you can find appropriate measures and appropriate circumstances to reabsorb them either by local integration or voluntary repatriation, where do you want to put them? So of course, people like us in the NGO management sector and the refugee management agencies will be sad, but unfortunately, the policies at that level sometimes are influenced by other factors which we don't have control over.
Anyway, the court has put that on hold.
Naturally, that will continue to drag on.
Indeed, they have. Jimi Olusola, Chief Executive, African Refugees Foundation, would like to thank you for joining us
Thank you very
this
much.
day, World Refugee Day.
Thank you so much.